Welcome back to the JumpifyLabs podcast, the show for founders who want growth without the guesswork. Today we're joined by Adam Coffey, fellow veteran and former three-time private equity-backed CEO. He's also the author of the Private Equity Playbook, where he's completed 58 acquisitions, worked with 9 private equity sponsors, and helped generate more than $1 billion in exit value. Adam, welcome to the show.
Jay, good to be here. Nice to see you, and hello to all your listeners out there. I'm ready, man. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's rock and roll. So you and I both having military background. I do want to start there. Your Army background, of course, shaped your leadership in some form or fashion. When you first became CEO, where did you find that training showed up the most?
I would say my entire career. I honestly can say if I don't serve there, we're talking a long time ago. I'm in my 60s now. We're talking 40 years ago, Ronald Reagan is president. That's when Adam's in the service. But without learning those skills back then, teamwork, discipline, leadership, I never make it to CEO. So it's that work ethic. It's that thing called servant leadership. It's leading from the front. Take the hill, follow me, and I'll show you how it's done. And so that, as a young guy, I went in the service right out of high school. That was such a good, important foundation for my future professional life to learn those skills early. And so I'm a very disciplined person, even to this day. I'm up at 4 a.m. every day. It's like I have my regimented routine. Military, without the military, I don't reach the same level of success. So I credit the military with that. So it's everywhere. It's not accepting defeat. It's what do you do in the military? If you've got an obstacle in front of you, you find out how to go through it, around it, over it, under it. It's like you don't accept that it can't be done. It will get done. And so it's the determination that it built in me that countless times in turnarounds, I was a turnaround guy, countless times it's like, it's dark days where a lot of people would give up. It's like, no, I'm gonna find a way through this.
I'm getting pumped just listening to you talk about it because there's not a lot of there's very few people that can understand really how it's like to have that mentality. Yes, maybe athletes and high performing teams, but not many people share that same mentality. Let's go down the linear progression. You were at GE during the Jack Welch era. What's one principle from that time that still drives how you operate?
So it was a magical time. I call it the Camelot era. Tech doesn't exist for all you young people out there. Tech. Steve Jobs is still in his house, or he's been fired at least once from Apple. It's like tech doesn't exist. GE's number one on the Fortune 500 list. That is the world's largest company that's growing so fast, it's doubling in size every 3 years. If you go back and look at the stock, tail of the tape, stock split every 3 years from the 10 years I was there, 1991 to 2001. It's like the stock split every 3 years. I thought as a young guy, when you were getting stock options, that money just fell out of the sky and that was normal. What Jack did as the world's most admired CEO was inspire the entire generation of business leaders to focus on achieving more and achieving great things. So what did I learn? I learned how to run a company from the world's most admired CEO from Fortune number one position. I was a turnaround guy in GE. Even GE had underperforming business units. And I remember when I got my first managerial role, my mentor, who was an ex-Cleveland Browns professional football player, said, Adam, if I give you something that works, I'll never know what you got. I'm going to give you the worst thing I can find in GE, and you're going to run that. Let's see what you got. So I started life as a turnaround guy in Fortune number one and the world's most admired CEO at the helm. A great 10 years to learn how to run a business. And when Jack left in 2001, I left. All the business leaders really left. A lot of business leaders left, and it was that era was done. It was done. It was time to move on, different chapters. And all of the ex-GE division leaders went on to become CEOs of big companies. That's when I started my CEO career, was after leaving GE. So I credit the military with giving me teamwork, discipline, leadership. I wasn't a Harvard MBA, but you were not going to outwork me. I'm going to outwork anybody. I will not accept defeat. I'll find a way through. That's the mentality I took into GE. At GE, Jack Welch taught me how to run a company. And if I still talk about it to this day, that my goal and objective for any company I'm in, I want to grow earnings 30% a year. Well, why 30%? Well, 30% will double your company every 3 years, just like it was at Jack's. And if you wanted to keep your job, you better be growing the earnings of the business you're running at that level, or Jack's going to fire your ass. It's like, that was the intensity. We play hard, we win. It's like, we work hard, we win, we play hard. It's like, it was a different era, but that's where I learned how to run a company. And it's like, I took that mentality plus the discipline of the military. And then I took that to every CEO role I had. We will find a way to get to this level of growth that will ensure our success. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be a servant leader who takes care of my employees and builds a ridiculous culture where everybody wants to come, because that's also a key to success. Is we have to build a strong culture if we're going to attract people and retain talent.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's still getting fired up the way you're talking about this with such passion. Adam, what do you feel like separates CEOs who succeed under private equity ownership versus those who actually fail? I'm sure because you've been part of so many acquisitions, which will
Let me start with a bad statistic. So I'm going to scare a lot of founders out there with this statistic. The last time I saw this statistic, it goes something like this: 73% of all founders who sell to private equity do not survive the first 5-year hold period. 73% flame out rate. And I tell people, it's not that these founders were not capable. What it is that they weren't prepared. And there's some subset, hey, I was in my 70s, I sold my business, I retired, I was leaving anyway. And then there's some people who say, you just gave me a wheelbarrow full of gold, and I just don't want to work very hard anymore. And then there are those who really went into it with the mindset of, I'm gonna transition. I'm gonna be a successful CEO. And I'd say it's not that they weren't capable; it's that they were not prepared. Because when PE owns business, it's like business as a professional sport played at the highest level. If you're an athlete, if you've ever played sports, it's like, I grew up playing hockey and basketball. It's like, pick your sport. The regulation court size doesn't change in hockey. The rink is the same size when you're 5 years old as it is when you're a pro athlete. But as you move up in level, it's like to high school or college or pro, the speed with which a professional athlete covers the ice is incredibly different than when you were a 12-year-old. And same thing with a basketball court. The speed with which the game is played is very different. Same thing in business, the world of private equity. So a fund lasts for 10 years. They have 6 years to invest their capital and buy platforms, the base company they're going to build from. And then the average hold period is 5 years. We got to go from wherever that company's at to growing earnings at 30+% or better in order to lock in the kind of returns that PE is looking for. And they're moving at a very fast pace, and they're expecting you as an owner, a former founder, to move at a very fast pace. So I'd say the reason most people flame out is because they're just unprepared. They're stepping from high school, skipping college, going right to the pros, and they're looking at these athletes and the speed with which the game is played, and they just can't function. They don't adapt. And so part of what I do today is teach founders how to think, act, and win like a PE-backed CEO before they become one, so that they are a survivor. For one, they're going to sell their company for a much higher number. But for two, if they choose to become a rollover investor to stick around to continue to work with that business, then they will perform at a much higher level, and they'll have a much higher probability of surviving that first 5-year hold period.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the natural next question for me is, you talked about preparation. What are the core areas that someone should focus on when they are thinking about, okay, I need to prep?
So I think the biggest problem with founders that I see, Jay, is accountability. It's a lack of accountability. In the military, if you're not doing your job, someone's gonna let you're not doing your job. If you're in a Fortune 500 company, you got a boss. And if you're not doing your job, you're going to get fired. And if you're a CEO, you got a board of directors. If you're not doing your job, you're going to get fired. Well, who fires you if you're a founder and you have a lousy year? Nobody. There's no accountability. So people accept mediocrity. If I told you, you will grow your business by 30% this year, you'll grow your earnings by 30% this year, or you will die. You'll cease to exist. A little melodramatic, but do you think you'd work harder? I think I'd work my ass off to try to figure out how it is that I'm going to get to that 30% number. And if I'm not there in November and I've got no chance, well, then I'm going to party my ass off for the next 30 days because I'm about ready to check out. It's like, but that's the mentality that founders need to have, and they don't. There's a lack of accountability. So you talk about what are those things? Well, if I boiled it down to business stuff, the typical PE formula is pretty prescriptive. I'm going to create a strategic plan. I'm going to have a measuring system in place. I'm going to have a set of initiatives that help me drive the bus and drive success. I'm going to create a crystal ball of predictability, of forecasting, of understanding if I'm on track or not. And then I'm going to focus relentlessly on execution. And I tell people, like, to be successful in business as a founder, it's difficult. It's like only 7% of companies that start ever get to $1 million of revenue. And only 4% of those ever get to 10 million in revenue. And so people who beat the odds and actually start a successful business and are able to grow it, they typically get there because they manage minutia and they are focused on relentless execution at every level and every department. It's like, I use an orchestra kind of an analogy. An orchestra has different sections. I've got woodwinds, I've got percussion, I've got all these different sections. And a section is organized by chairs. You have a first chair player is the best player in that section of the orchestra. And when you're building a company as an entrepreneur, you're the first chair player in every section of your orchestra. And when you start to work with and get bigger and you want to continue to find success, if you're managing minutia, you run out of bandwidth, you cap out, you tap out. I bought 58 companies and I bought them mostly from entrepreneurs who had tapped out. They just had no more room for growth. They had no more bandwidth. They were managing minutia. Entrepreneurs need to find a second gear, and that gear is we need to learn how to manage process. We have to learn how to hire a team of leaders that we can empower, that we articulate a vision, create that shared aspiration that people are going to run for. And then we get the hell out of the way and we hold them accountable to numbers and metrics, and we coach them, we guide them. And on occasion, we have to correct them or replace them. But we have to learn how to manage process rather than managing minutia. And I think that's one of the areas. So most entrepreneurs wing it, don't have a detailed strategic plan. They're managing minutia. They're not managing process. A lot of times they're focused on the value that they bring to the table rather than the value their employees can bring to the table if they hire the right team. And so these are subtle differences, but they're the differences between someone taps out 20, 30 million and I buy 20 or 30 of those companies, put them together, and I'm building $1 billion business. What's the difference? I manage process. I hire good people. I articulate a vision. I have a measuring system. I have a cadence of how I manage that continued effort and growth. And those are some of the kinds of things that are different between running a PE-backed company and being an entrepreneur.
Oh, amazing. There's so many little gold nuggets there. I like the part where you said they focus on giving their value, but not the value their employees bring. I mean, that's a huge mindset shift. So subtle difference in just the words, but a humongous shift in how you're approaching the problem strategically. Okay, so Adam, you completed 58 acquisitions. Do you remember your first one? What did you get right and what did you get wrong?
So, yes, I do remember my first one. And I got it right. I got it incredibly right. But my first acquisition was actually run by somebody I knew. And I was familiar with that company. And I wanted to solve a strategic problem that we had. And this was the perfect company to do it. And so for me, it was familiarity with the asset that I was buying that actually drove the success of it. What I learned later on in life is I'm evaluating companies. First, we have to develop a buy box, I call it, or an avatar. We have to know what good looks like before we start looking. We have to profile what it is that we're seeking to find in an acquisition. I'll give you an example. I'm working with multiple roll-ups in the accounting industry right now. So bookkeeping, payroll, tax. Sexy little area right now. I'm working on multiple roll-ups in that space. Well, there's 1.8 million bookkeeping, accounting, and tax firms in the US, 1.8 million. And if I want to buy 5 or 10, and I've got 1.8 million potential opportunities, I can't spend my time digging in on everything and wasting precious time because I don't have time. So I got to know what good looks like. What's the size? What's the revenue? What's the earnings? What's the disposition of the owner? Who's the customer vertical being served? And if there's a geography element, where is this company at? And what's the age of the owner? And are they going to be a rollover investor? I'm going to keep them, or I'm going to jettison them and give them a 1 year. It's like, I got to figure out everything about what the perfect acquisition is going to look like. I often have multiple strategies that I'm playing out continuous, at the same time. And so I got to have different buy boxes for the different strategies that I'm playing out. And I very quickly want to be able to look at companies and say, fits, no fit, fits, dig in, doesn't fit, move on, next. And be very, very disciplined and not suffer from what I call shiny penny syndrome. So if I was a t-shirt today, my t-shirt would say, as it relates to M&A, I'd rather regret not buying something I should have than regret buying something I shouldn't have. So people get shiny penny syndrome. They want to get a deal done so bad. They don't have patience, that they overlook obvious flaws and they make a deal work. Or they focus on trying to find a fixer-upper that they can get cheap. And when someone tells me that's their strategy, I know they don't understand how M&A works, because the way we make money is by getting bigger, and multiple expansion is naturally occurring. And so it's easier to buy good companies run by good people, pay fair market value, put them together, and let arbitrage and multiple expansion give me my return, than buying a bunch of fixer-uppers that are going to bury me and cause me to go through unnatural acts to fix them in order to try to find return. So a lot of subtle things about what I said there, but it's know what good looks like before we start looking. Be very disciplined. Only buy good companies run by good people, pay fair market value, and you will do just fine in the world of M&A. But it's when we get, I want to get a deal done itis, that we jettison rational thinking. We're looking at a company that's flawed and we buy it anyway. And then it kills us. So out of 58 acquisitions, I bought one bad one. One company I should not have bought. At the time, it was less than 5% of my revenue, but it probably created 80% of my headaches for the next 3 years. Bad deals kill you. Good deals, are what we need. Good companies, good people, fair market value, multiple expansion and arbitrage takes care of the profit.
And I mean, if you're doing 1 out of 58, I mean, you're still really good percentage of your win rate.
I use a baseball analogy. I say, think of the person in the history of baseball who had the highest batting average for a career was Ty Cobb. And he hit over 400, I think it was 3 years, but his career batting average was like 350, which means he made 6.5 outs for every 10 at bats. In M&A, you got to bat 900 to 950. You got to bat, out of 20 acquisitions, you can't afford more than one bad one, or it will kill you. It'll derail you. It will lead to disappointing returns. So I'd rather not buy anything than buy that one that's bad. So I am very judicious about knowing what good looks like and only buying good and being disciplined about it. Likewise, we can't pay too much. We pay fair market value. I found many good companies out there that met all my criteria of my buy box, but when it came for price, I'm paying 5 times, they want 8. Well, God bless them. They'll find an in today's world who will probably pay them the 8 times, but it won't be me, because I pay fair market value. When I bought 23 companies in my last industry, in my last roll up, I paid on average 5 times, because that's what they were going for. And when someone said, I want 8, nope, sorry, pass. Next, move on.
That's that discipline too, right? The discipline that you have of maintaining and not chasing the shiny objects, and also being disciplined to stay within your buy box.
That's it. If you're out downrange, you're on patrol, and you're supposed to go find a red rose, you don't bring back a yellow one.
Great analogy. Adam, you wrote the Private Equity Playbook. Why did you feel compelled to write it?
I was walking my dog with my wife, and my wife said, I had been talking about writing a book for a long time. My wife said, it's time for you to do that. I originally wrote it to serve as a pivot. So I knew I wanted to leave being a full-time CEO, and I wanted to focus on consulting, mentoring, trying to help the next generation. So in my kind of life, in my CEO career, I made a ton of money. And so money wasn't necessarily the only driving factor in life. And after 20 plus years of doing it, I was just kind of bored. I'm like, I need a different challenge. I had been teaching at UCLA in the executive MBA program. So I was a guest speaker, guest lecturer. I never taught courses. I was a working CEO, but I would come and I'd speak to all the different cohorts for like 15 years. It's like everybody who's graduated with an executive MBA at UCLA has heard me speak. And I really loved mentoring kind of the next generation of business leaders. And at UCLA in the executive MBA program, half the cohort's international. And these are all up and coming stars who are mid-career, who are going to be the next generation of leaders. And I really wanted to make an impact on them and try to help shape how they thought about leadership. And I wanted them to care about people and cultures and not just returns. And I wanted to show them that you could do both. You could build a great company with a great culture that really took care of people, where people love to go, come to work in the morning, and you could generate returns for shareholders. These were not mutually exclusive. So as I was getting into all this mentoring and stuff, I'm around all these really smart professors, and they've all got books, and it's like I'm liking this mentoring thing. And so I just recognized how explosive private equity was as a force in the world. And I recognized how little the typical entrepreneur knew about private equity. And so today, in today's world, the world's largest PE firms have my book as recommended reading for their incoming associates. Several MBA programs have my book as required reading when their focus is entrepreneurial, leadership and things like that. And so it was kind of like, hey, I love teaching, but I don't make any money. I'm kind of tired of being a CEO and I made a bunch of money. How do I flip the script? And so I just walked away. And so the PE playbook was supposed to be my pivot. I sold my company in January. The book came out in February of 19, and I was supposed to walk away. The problem was the buyer of my company in large part paid the price they paid because it was me that was running it, and they had a relationship with me in a previous company. And so I agreed to stay on, and I stayed for another 3 years, I think it was. And then my second book came out, and that was the actual pivot. It was, okay, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go hang up my CEO cleats. I'm going to start educating the next generation of entrepreneurs and leaders, and I'm going to teach them how to be successful. In life, you can learn from professors who've never done anything other than teach. You look at the internet today, everybody's an internet hero. Everybody, there are people out there, a dime a dozen, who made very little running a company, and now they make more money teaching you how to run a company and sell it than they ever did actually being a business person. They're masters of social media marketing. And I'm like, dude, I've sold a company for $1 billion with a B. It's like, I've got $2.5 billion in exits, and I've got something to say, and I've got something to teach, which is to teach the next generation how to succeed. Right now is the biggest wealth transfer in human history. Millions of people my age, baby boomers, we're retiring out. And somebody's going to either buy these companies or inherit them or take them over. And there's this void of knowledge. And, still to this day, I just did it over the weekend. I had a bunch of entrepreneurs here in Dallas. I still give a quiz. If I'm teaching a seminar on private equity, I'll start with a 10-question multiple choice quiz. 90% of the room fails. 90%. To this day, these are entrepreneurs who think they know what private equity is. Why should they care? Because private equity is buying 50% of all companies bought and sold on the planet. The reason we have a market, the reason we have high multiple that are being paid for our companies is because this force, this economic force called private equity exists, and it keeps growing like a weed. We need to understand it as entrepreneurs so that we can use it to our advantage. They're a tool for us when we need capital. We're a tool for them because their capital needs returns. And so they buy companies and they invest in people. And it's a natural marriage made in heaven when people understand how it works.
Wow. That is such a huge opportunity there. Adam, I want to wrap this up. I want to be mindful of your time, but how are you finding more entrepreneurs to mentor and to guide? What is your strategy for doing that?
So it's interesting in the world of AI. I never had done paid advertising or anything like that. It's like, if I talk to my clients, 100% of my clients say, I read your books or I heard you on a podcast. You and I are doing a podcast. I say yes to every podcast. I don't care if it's your first episode or your 1,000. When I'm on with a Nick Bradley, or I'm on with Ryan Miller and 1 million people listen to me, or I'm on and there's 10. I don't discriminate. I don't care. Podcasts and books are the top of my funnel. And then I direct on everyone, come follow me on LinkedIn. I don't have a team of people. You're going to get me. You reach out to me, I'm going to respond. And it's like, that brings them into my ecosystem. I'm excited about something I just started, which is called Empire Builder Academy. And the premise was, if the 61-year-old me could go back and sit down with the 31-year-old me, what would I tell him? What would I teach him? So that 2.5 billion in exits would have been 10 billion in exits. And lessons learned would have been learned earlier rather than later. And so I built Empire Builder Academy to teach entrepreneurs how to troubleshoot, how to fix, how to improve margins, how to scale, how to use M&A, how to prepare for exit, what private equity is, and then how to exit for top dollar and how to work with private equity. I teach them all of that. It also works for, I'll call it PE firms, to take their transitioning founder-led companies, because we don't want a 73% flame out rate. Send them to me. I'll teach them how to be a private equity backed seat. I'll teach founders how to do it before they become one, and help them accelerate their growth in revenue and earnings, and prepare them for exit, and give them the tools they need so that they can succeed. And so that's kind of what my passion is right now, is getting that thing off the ground. I work with over 100 companies on 5 continents. I literally have customers all around the world that I work with. I work with PE firms, I work with founders, and I teach. Those are the 3 things that I do. And it's kind of reinvigorated my career. So it gave me a second, I'll call it, life. I was kind of burning out as a CEO and getting bored. And this is my new calling. And so I'm having fun again. I'm helping people. My founders have had over 500 million in exits just in the last 18 months or so. So I'm helping them make a difference and seeing them get their 9-figure exits. I have a 10-figure exit that'll be coming. I've got one company I'm working with that's a big firm, and it's fun. It's fun for me to watch other people learn. I just had a bunch of business owners in Dallas. These are people that have been working with me for the last year. And we were celebrating our wins, and the growth is phenomenal. It's like, you can learn how to do this too. Look in the mirror, ask yourself one question: why not me? Why not? Why can't you be the next entrepreneur that builds a $1 million business, a $10 million business, a $100 million business, a $1 billion business? Somebody's going to do it. Why not you? What are the skills you need? And then you need the belief in yourself, because success starts right here.
Man, I feel like running through a brick wall, Adam.
Let's do it, brother.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, well, I mean, anyone that's listening to this with a pulse is going to feel super invigorated, super charged up. Where can they go to find more about you and release some of this energy that you just gave everybody?
Chairmangroup.us is my website, or come to LinkedIn. You will get me, not a team of social media people. You get me. I'm up at 4:00 every day. Cup of coffee in my hand. First thing I do is I go to LinkedIn and I start looking at my messages, and I start engaging with people. And that's when all my books were written, was between 4 and 6:30 a.m. Couple more books done. One's 100% done, in the can, coming out soon. Another book, still a work in progress, but goal and objective is to do a book about every 2 years, and to help people succeed. So come to LinkedIn. You'll find me, Adam Coffey, Coffey. As Stephen King said in The Green Mile, John Coffey, it's like to drink, but spelled different.
Amazing. Adam, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience with us. This has been an invigorating conversation for my midday. I no longer need a midday coffee pick-me-up. Thanks for your energy, brother. If you're listening and you want to reach out to Adam, he's in his LinkedIn DMs. That's how him and I actually started communicating. And if you like more episodes like this, be sure to tune into the JumpifyLabs podcast for more. My name is Jay. Thanks so much. Take care.